Hello and welcome to the Neil Haley Show simulcast with the Storehouse Media Group. And today we have a very interesting guest. He has a very interesting topic. His name is Rahul Maharaja. How do you pronounce your last name? Because I think I'm going to end up butchering it. Maharaj. And he,
Maharaj, perfect.
okay, great. So he is the voice behind Mr. Trauma Talks. And I want to talk about this because, Raw, you have a really big event coming up. And we want to talk about that because we want to get people out there and put the word out there so they can come and visit your event if they're in New York City. But we're going to get to that in a moment. But I do want to welcome you to the show and let everybody know a little bit about who you are and why it's so important what you have to talk about today. You are an international motivational speaker, mental health advocate, entrepreneur, author, singer, and the visionary force behind Mr. Trauma Talks. You're born in Trinidad and Tobago and reborn in New York City 26 years ago. You've dedicated your life to transforming diversity into advocacy, pain, and purpose. So you were a financial advisor, and then you went from there to Daycare CEO, and then from there to global mental health advocate. So let us know, what was that journey and why did that journey take place?
Oh, I love this. So thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a very big honor to be here, and thank you so much. Mental health is so huge, and what happened is basically, as you say, from financial advisory, while I was doing financial advising, and I was at New York Life and different things like that, I decided to open a daycare. So it took some years actually before the daycare could have catch itself, and that's a mental stress by itself. But yes, and then from there, I had a little journey to India in 2017, and when I did that, I noticed how people would treat each other, and they're like this. In my eyes, they're the same, and like you don't realize it, even though there's a diversity of people here in New York City, you just didn't realize it. And then I came back and I started seeing it more. How people would treat people, how people will add unnecessary stress that people do not need without not understanding what that person is going through, but understanding yourself. You're going through something that you should understand someone else. Put your feet in someone else's shoes. So all this started that I wanted to share people's stories. Now, why? So I went all the way back and started reflecting on my entire life of being abused, of the living in a home with domestic violence, understanding mental health, and even certain disorders like BPD. Whereas so many things happens to a person with BPD, abandonment, all these different things that adds towards it. And I could have been basically, when I look back, I could have been someone who could have been lost, decided just be pick up alcoholism or go be on drugs or just park up on the side, because at the age of 14 I actually attempted suicide. You know what I mean? Hell, in 2015, while opening a daycare and while I said all the stress that comes with it, actually falling ill and everything, losing money, backing up on your mortgage, every single thing, even though you had money, it just disappears because in this economy, we know how it goes, right? But at that time, I found myself one more time in a place where I decided I don't need to exist to be here. But I was wrong. I was awakened in 2017. And in 2018, I brought out something called Your Life Experiences with Raw, whereas I started taking people's stories and let them hear, hey, you are not alone. I am going through it just like you. And if Sherry can do it, you can do it too. Fast forward now to 2026. While on that journey, a little joke from someone came up and called me Mr. Trauma Talks. And that just got stuck because we went from your life experiences with Raw, your trauma talks, and then I combined it. Now I have become Mr. Trauma Talks, hosting mental health conferences, not in a ballroom, not in a conference room, but in a theater on Broadway and the iconic Palladium Times Square. That's where we have reached through this.
That's super exciting. And and I follow because you sometimes you get into a job because it's there, and my gosh, it sounds kind of interesting. You think, yeah, I could do that. But then you find, that's not where your potential is. And then you have the daycare. My mother owned a daycare, so I know how stressful it is. Just the kids and compliance and all that. And then you go to the mental health because that was your passion. As somebody who works with books, I would tell people, like, they'll say, write what you know, and I'm like, well, that's really good advice, except I want to add to that and say, write what your passion's about, because when you do that, people, they pick up on that in the book, and passion is contagious, and people want to be around that passion because, I don't know, it's motivational, it's inspirational, it makes someone move, it makes them think. And then you have the stories. You mentioned storytelling. That's how you provoke that passion in somebody. That's, like, if you're a preacher of a church, you tell stories because people start seeing themselves in that, like, well, that could be me. Or if you're a salesperson or something, stories are really good. So you've got this big event in New York City, and tell us about that.
Well, okay, so like we can go into a lot of things right here to tell you a little bit about that more, but I want to tell you, you spoke about stories, and this is my
Yes.
book, Untold Stories, Hidden Truths, and it's 24 stories. And as you said, when I started in 2018, people sent me their stories, but they didn't want others to know their name or who they were that it went through. Because I'm from the Caribbean, and most of the stories are from the Caribbean. And I used to go on this thing called Anonymous Monday, and I would just tell the story. And in 2020, when the pandemic happened and it hit, I wrote Melly in the Pandemic, which is my kid's book, but it was taking so long with the graphics. One day I'm just sitting on my table, and the same voice that guides me to do all that I do said, "Listen, get the stories from all these people, because it was hundreds of stories, and ask them, send it, let them email you and tell them, hey, I'm writing a book and I want you to give me a permission to put these in there." And they said yes. These are the ones that said yes. And the thing about it was, as you said, it's what your passion is, or but who you are inside. And the thing about it, I wrote this, my friend read it, she helped me edit it because we put it into a nice way. But when I finished all these, I didn't even put my story in as yet. And I read it and every day, and you're gonna read the same story and cry. But guess what? Something was missing. It was me. I needed to give my input at the end of each story. And that's the thing about it. This is what we do. We put everything together, even on my podcast and everything, Mental Health Bites or Trauma Talk Thursdays, and we have in-person Trauma Behind the Glamour. Comes together. I want this to be heard big. And this is where we decided to bring it at the Palladium Times Square. We have, think about this, we have Grammy winners like Paul Anthony of Full Force. We have Jerry Wonder, who produced some big people out in this place, right? We're talking about, you have a fifth president of a country, Trinidad and Tobago, one of the former presidents, Anthony Carmona. We have the governor of the Grammys from the Philadelphia chapter, Rob Schwartz. You have an actual prince coming to tell his story on the stage. We have someone from the UN, ambassador from the UN. So you have people that actually knows and understands that, hey, this is needed. We're actually doing song therapy live on stage. And trust me, when I tell you the song therapy, it actually helps with your mental stress. I have seen people in so many chaotic places. You can go somewhere and someone, you're just delivering something and you can hear the argument in the corridor of a building, and they're arguing because the landlord told them he gonna shut the water off for 2 hours. And here I'm thinking, we didn't even have hot water for like almost a week because something went down. You get what I'm
Mm.
saying? You gotta shower in this cold water. You gotta figure it out to do. And here you are for 2 hours. You gotta notice, and this gives them anxiety. But it is the mental place that some people are in. You see, most of the times I tell people all the time, you got to understand it's temporary. You got to be able to love yourself, to give yourself a pat on the back, to say thank you for the little things that from yesterday to today, it's tough. You got to be able to look at that inner self, the guy in the mirror, yes, but that guy in the mirror is supposed to be in here. And you be able to tell that inner person, I love you, because it's tough out here. So, with that being said, as we love to make sure that we make you understand you are not alone. It is hard. It is big. It's tough. It's heavy. It's mental health.
Yeah, and they say, before you can really love someone else, you need to learn to love yourself first. You got, come from within. But you're right. When people go through trauma or something emotional or mental, there is this mindset like no one will understand you. You're the only one who's had gone through this, and you don't want to talk about it because everybody's going to think something's wrong with you or whatever. But my thing is that when you do start talking about it, when you finally let it escape from your lips to somebody else's ears, there's a freedom in that. And that, you're finally getting it out in the atmosphere, and keeping it in and keeping that silence going, so not healthy. It's like, you know what I compare it to? I compare it to mold. Like, you put some mold spores in a closet and you close the door and you go back and that thing's just going to grow. So the same thing
Mhm.
with keeping silence. You keep it and it's just on the inside. So I think you having that, you being an ear that people trust, and people have to trust you to share these things, is awesome. What are some of the traumas that you work with?
Well, I'm not a therapist myself, right? So
You
what
just
I
talk about.
do, we talk about what's happening, we take people's stories, but I do have two different people or different psychologists, psychiatrists. We had season one of Mental Health Bites where we started. We had a doctor, a psychiatrist on the season, so we discussed different things. Now I can ask you any question. You're the doctor. You will answer that when it comes to disorders. This time we have a psychologist. We have Dr. Tash Reddy on season two. So she comes in with trauma talks with me as well and give her input. But the thing about it is, we're not here to diagnose anyone. We're not here to cure anyone or heal anyone when it comes to that. We're here to bring the real talks of what really mentally stresses people. And most of the time, we have understood it's human beings destroy the mental stress state of mind of other human beings. And it's sad to know that. And do we really go intentionally? Like, did I come out intentionally to say or hurt you in some way today, Sherry? No, people don't intentionally do that. But somehow you're twisted up in some situation that things go out of way, people get hurt, people have to go their separate ways. And this is where the part about I tell you, let go. Majority of the times, you have learned so many times that you came here alone. Most of the things that happen in this life with stress is attachment. Attachment of even in people in domestic violent relationships, and they're being beaten, they're being abused emotionally, physically, every single way, and they stay because they just feel that is the what they're supposed to do. And again, you spoke about that, about mental health before, the stigmas behind it. You wouldn't believe it's 2026. There's so many social media videos on all different disorders. There's so many things that happens in people's life, and people will hear it, but they don't accept it because they have to understand, as you said, love that person inside. When you love that person inside, you will be able to let go. You think I could have carried all my baggages from a child? Between the age of 6 to 18, there's so many things that happened to me that if I did not just let go, I, I would have attempted suicide again and again and again, because that's how bad things happen. And then throughout my life, when I decided to do this, and this is something I love to tell people about, you practice what you preach. So here I am in a 10-year relationship from 2009 all the way, it was 2018, and I decided to do your life experiences with Raw, to let people hear other people's stories. And my partner, who was a model, an actor, whatever, that I supported from those times when I told you my idea, you looked at me like I'm the dumbest person. Now I'm a person from behind the camera. I learned to do all the things I did. Well, you see, this is why everything is a learning lesson. But at the end of the day, I was the guy behind the camera taking his pictures, all different things. Yeah, I told you my idea, and it was like something you can't understand what I'm talking about. Anyways, going further is he never supported me, but I started realizing the things I'm telling people to get out of, I was stuck in it. And I had to open my eyes to realize 10 years, is it the number that we want to carry unhappily down the line? Because I've seen now that I've seen it openly. People are in 25-year relationships, they have kids, and they are unhappy. Why? You get what I'm saying? So I was able to take myself out of that situation. And my journey, this is what I tell people all the time. And someone just recently reached out to me on TikTok and they said to me, I said, do you listen to me? And they said, yeah, but you don't know. I was like, let me just ask you a question. Do you think I live it as well? That's the thing. I'm not just speaking because I just hear something in my head. No, I'm speaking because I speak from experience. So my journey for the past almost 8 years has been transformative in many different ways. And I want people to understand they have to accept change. And this is the thing, it all affects your mental state of mind.
It does. It does. You talk to people who like to share their stories. What do you think is the most prevalent topic or issue within these people's stories? What do you hear stories most about?
Oh, most of the stories are people who were abused when they were, in their younger days, and it was by either a relative or someone close to them, and what they had to carry that through their life, and they blame people in their lives. And I mean, most of the time is yes. I say this all the time, but who do you really blame when something really bad happens to you? Your loved ones? Do you blame yourself? Do you blame the perpetrator? Or you just have to know, you learn from that, you understand that it was not your fault, and you have to be able to keep moving on. Because, have you ever heard the saying, and I'm sure you know because you have lived it as well as you go forward, Sherry, that it just keeps getting tougher and tougher throughout, but it's from your past experiences. You have to be able to understand, hey, I was there, I was in a tough spot, I can do this. It's like a person, like yesterday we interviewed Paul Anthony on Trauma Behind the Glamour, and he fighting cancer 3 times. You know what I mean? The first time, the second time, the third time. Some people can't even go through understanding when they are diagnosed the first time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like what's the saying like I used to be upset because I didn't have any shoes until I met a man who had no feet. Like,
Uh, I
yeah,
say that. I say it all the time, right? There
yeah.
once was a man who had the blues because he had no shoes. One day, down the street, he met a man who had no feet. See, I tell people, what is meant for you shall never pass you by, and what passes you by was never meant for you.
Oh,
Everything is
that's
temporary.
interesting. That's an interesting way of putting it. I like that. I do. Yeah, there are people in that in no way belittles or makes what somebody's going through not a big deal. because it's all relevant. And some people, they go through certain things that I don't know if I could go through it, and vice versa. That I go through things that they probably wouldn't. So I think it's who we are. It's like your saying says, and about what passes you by, was it meant for you? And they say that God will never give you something more than you can handle. And I think it is part of growing. They say it's not the problems you go through that determines the kind of person you are, but how you handle it. And the abuse is a tough one, because that's an issue of a deep rooted trust that got betrayed. Whether it was in a marriage, or some kind of relationship, or a parent who was supposed to protect you, or something like that. That it's not a good thing, and there's a lot of trauma from that. PTSD and all that stuff comes from it. So I'm glad they're reaching out. I'm glad they're talking to you, not for advice, but to me, when you're in a situation like that, again, talking about it. Talk to someone whom you trust, and it's super freeing. It's just so freeing to be able to speak, and to know you have an ear there who's really truly listening. They're not just hearing you, they're really listening, and they're feeling you. They're getting that empathy going on, and that compassion for you. And you know they're your sounding post. Sometimes you just talk, and you don't some people just don't need advice, they just want to talk. And there's some people that do need advice, and they come, but you have that doctor there. So you know there you go, you've got it all handled. Yeah.
Sherry, you said like a couple things, and one of the things you said is like speak to someone you trust. Or if someone tell you their story, you shouldn't be making it into a gossip. A person trust
No.
you, they trust you. You should understand that. And another thing you said is like many have times a person will be telling me their story and tears will come on my eyes, and I'm thinking in my head, God, thank you. Because at the end of the day, I was asked one time, Ra, how do you compare yourself to a family who was beaten and raped in front of each other, two daughters, the father who afterwards he as well was abused and raped in front of his wife and kids. He actually take his own life. You see, I don't compare myself because
Yeah.
listen,
That's deep.
you put yourself in someone else's shoes and you connect with them. Because as you said, I understand that the person I call daddy, just imagine, because he's my stepfather, but that's the person I see, and you're the person who is the one abusing me. You're the person who's the one who is being the one that is a monster in that place. Then you go on, just as you talk about trust, a person when I was 18, living in a room, this guy who I totally trust never showed no sort of sexual like I want to be with this person or anything. I actually never even, you know, it had nothing like that. And we talk very like talk about politics every single time we see each other, something like that. And then you totally betray someone and do what you did. At the end of the day, is if I keep holding on to those things, I don't know where I would have been. I'm being honest. And I understand because I had PTSD about my stepfather up until I think 2008,
Mm,
until I actually could have, looked at him and understand that's not the same person anymore. Looked at him and be
mm,
like, hey, you see, that's what I said. Like my brother, his son, and I had a conversation when he passed away a couple of years ago. It's like, Ra, you were the one standing by the box the most. Because yes, back in the 80s or 70s or whatever it was, mental health wasn't so open like it is now, and we
no.
didn't know if that person was bipolar. We didn't know if they have went through to come to that point. And living in the Caribbean, it's a tough love. And when I say it's a
Hmm.
tough love, they say some very disgusting things. And even though they may not that they love you, but that's how they were taught it, and that's a sad thing. So we want to change all that.
Yeah. And so you're having this big event in New York City, and tell us about it and how people can go and get tickets and get involved.
Well, the sweet thing, it's on Ticketmaster. It's like so cool. And you just type in resilience. Resilience on June 11th. And it's from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. So think about you coming on Broadway. Like you'll come to see Frozen or The Lion King or Aladdin. But think about it. It's at the iconic Palladium Times Square.
Oh,
And the tickets are easy on Ticketmaster.
wow. That's exciting. That's exciting. June 11th, at from 1 to 6, you said, right?
1 to 7. It's
1 to
six-hours
7.
straight.
Okay. Okay, so Ticketmaster 1 to 7, and it just type in resilience and they're going to be able to get right to your to get a ticket, right? And you've got a
Yes.
conference coming up soon?
The conference is the
Oh,
mental health conference.
okay. Okay, that's the
That's
mental health
happening
call.
there. It is. That's the
Okay.
thing about it. It's a mental health conference in a theater. So it's like we have Lavari, who is an Billboard artist, and he's an actor. He was mentioned on Jimmy Kimmel a little while back, and he hosts my mental health conferences. This is the fourth time he's hosting my mental health conference. He sings as well. We're having two fashion shows. It's based on trauma and mental health, but by an iconic designer from New York as well, Prashant Goel. So we have two different things. It's like a twist. So it's like storytelling from all these amazing people. Plus, you have these interludes with singing and fashion as well.
Mm, so that's what people can expect, right? Some fashion shows and entertainment. All
And we
right.
have vendors. We have vendors as well, and you're gonna have photo ops for the VIPs and everyone else.
Awesome. Awesome. So just go to Ticketmaster, buy your ticket. What how can they find you if they want to reach out to Mr. Trauma? How can somebody find you?
Mr. Trauma Talks, MrTraumatalks on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. It's just Mr. Trauma Talks.
There you go. There you go. Well, Rod, it's been really great having you on the show and talking about what you do. And I just wish you all the best because there's a lot of trauma that goes out there that's going on. And, thank you for what you do to help those who reach out to you.
Thank you so much again,
Thank
Sherry, and
you.
thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. And this was a simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Storehouse Media Group. And take care, guys.